Welcome back, and thanks for being here. Close to 200 people a year go missing on cruise ships. Most of them fall overboard. But in today's story, no one really knows what happened to this woman who disappeared while on a family vacation. Xiang Li, who also went by the name Angie Li at times, was originally from China, and she also had her own wedding planning business called Cinderella's Wedding. Xiang had gotten married to a man named Daniel Belling, who was a German native and worked in IT. The couple had 2 children together, and they lived on the north side of Dublin, Ireland. Xiang and her husband also had a website of their own where they posted a number of podcasts, which featured personal commentary on tourism hotspots and festivals around Ireland. By all accounts, from the outside, they seemed to have a happy family. On February 9, 2017, 38-year-old Xiang Li and 49-year-old Daniel Belling, along with their 2 children, boarded the MSC Magnifica at the Italian port Civitavecchia. They were going to be departing on a 12-day Eastern Mediterranean cruise that would make stops in the ports of Genoa, Malta, Greece, and Cyprus. And the family had booked a beautiful balcony stateroom for the trip. But when the cruise ship arrived back in port at the end of the cruise, crew members noticed that after doing a head count of passengers as they disembarked, 1 passenger was missing. This passenger was Xiang Li. Right away, police were called, and they began searching for the wife and mother of 2. In addition, Daniel, along with various crew members, were interviewed, some of them even being interviewed multiple times. Police would also go over CCTV footage that they found on the ship, but they would see nothing unusual. What was odd, however, was that it took for crew members doing a head count of passengers for anyone to realize that Xiang was missing. Shouldn't her husband have reported it before then? A waitress on the ship told police that the last time she had seen Xiang was at dinner on the second night of the cruise. When she hadn't seen her the next day for breakfast or lunch, she just assumed that Xiang had gone to the ship's buffet instead. For the rest of the trip, the waitress noticed that Daniel and his children ate alone. And the maid who tended to the family's room would tell authorities that Daniel had instructed her not to make up the sofa bed on the 4th day of the cruise, telling her there were now only 3 people sleeping in the room, not 4. A souvenir shop owner also said that she had noticed Daniel, his wife, and their children in her store the second morning of the cruise. She said that Daniel was agitated and was yelling at his wife about a pair of shoes. He said to her, "Put these on instead of your sandals and shut up." He then handed his wife a pair of gym shoes. There was also a couple who was on board who said they had seen Xiang and her husband Daniel arguing as they walked towards the ship to embark. They claimed that the woman was actually the one yelling at the man, and the man was just being calm and quiet. They had assumed that Xiang had never even gotten on the ship. She looked so upset. After hearing all of this, Daniel was arrested on suspicion of murdering his wife. He was arrested by authorities as he was trying to board a Ryanair flight back to Dublin with his 2 children on February 20th, an entire 9 days since his wife had last been seen. When investigators spoke with Daniel, he would tell them that the last time he had seen his wife, Xiang, was when the vessel had docked in Greece. According to him, she had told him that she was meeting with someone on the island for lunch, so he and the children had decided to embark on a day trip. Daniel then told police that upon his return back to the ship with his children, he noticed his wife was missing. He also noticed that her luggage was missing, and he assumed that she had just taken it with her. He admitted that the 2 had been fighting prior to them disembarking the ship that day. But Daniel claimed that he and his wife had actually parted ways while on vacation before. On one occasion, Xiang had actually gone all the way back to Dublin in the middle of a trip. Another time, she took off to China for 6 months with no notice. So because of this, Daniel thought that his wife would at some point return back home. Daniel would later tell police that Xiang had actually gotten off the ship that day because she had some business meetings in Greece with the Chinese community who lived there. He tried to say that maybe his wife had been killed because she knew something that she shouldn't. The thing was, police soon discovered that some of this story could not be true, because at no point during the entire cruise did Xiang ever disembark from the boat. She had boarded the ship, then 2 days later, there was no trace of her. She vanished. Investigators had checked the electronic card key system, which confirmed that Xiang did not get off the boat after boarding on February 9th. Cruise ship workers insisted that the system would not have missed her. CCTV footage was also looked over, and it never showed Xiang getting off the ship. Daniel would also tell police that his wife had psychological issues, and maybe that had something to do with her disappearance. So had a head count not been done at the end of the cruise, it might not have been discovered for some time that Xiang was missing. So police were highly suspicious of Daniel not only because he didn't tell anyone that his wife was gone, but also because of some other discoveries they made. They discovered that Xiang and Daniel had actually been preparing for separation prior to their cruise, and the couple had been having some serious financial issues. Daniel had also gotten off the ship with one less piece of luggage, the piece of luggage he said that Xiang had taken with her. However, since she was never seen getting off the ship, where had that piece of luggage gone? Italian prosecutors who were handling the case alleged that Daniel had killed his wife on the second day of the cruise, then stuffed her in a suitcase and thrown her overboard. If it had been at night, while the engines were running, he potentially could have gotten away with it without anyone hearing or seeing. So after he was arrested, Daniel would end up spending 14 months in jail in Rome on suspicion of murder. But after his solicitor fought for his release, Daniel was finally let go and allowed to return back to Ireland in early 2018 while he awaited his trial. By this point, Daniel's story had changed. He said he believed that his wife was alive. And he was thinking that at this point, she had actually fled the cruise ship and gone back to her home country in China. Daniel claimed that Xiang wanted to go back to China for some time now because she was sick of her life in Dublin. He said that his wife's desire to leave him and the children had always been there, and he believed that the cruise ship was just the perfect way for her to make her escape. But previously, he had said he did not believe that his wife would have ever intentionally left her children. Backing up Daniel's statements, apparently Xiang had told her psychologist prior to the cruise that she was fed up with her kids and tired of Europe. Now, while Daniel had been in jail about a month after Xiang had gone missing, a suitcase had washed up in an Italian marina. Inside was a body that authorities believed might be Xiang. However, DNA tests later proved that it was not her, so they still had no evidence against Daniel. Also, during the time that Daniel was being held in an Italian prison, his lawyer came across some very interesting and very surprising evidence. Xiang's credit card had been used to pay a toll on Dublin's Motorway 50. This had occurred on March 21st, 2017, over a month after she disappeared. This had been discovered after Daniel's nephew had received an invoice in the mail for the toll, and it showed that her credit card had been used. Additionally, the locks on Daniel and Xiang's house had been changed. And again, Daniel had been in jail during this time. Then Daniel's lawyer said that Xiang was likely alive, and she had likely run off with a secret lover. He said this was because explicit messages had been found on her phone that had been sent to another individual who, like her, lived in Ireland. But why would Xiang have left her phone, her ID card, her residency permit, and even her clothes on board the ship? Daniel's lawyer additionally believed that there could have been an error registering Xiang's card as she got off the cruise ship. Even though crew members had previously said it was impossible, according to Daniel's lawyer, the ship's captain claimed that it was possible for it to have missed someone, though highly unlikely. Authorities still didn't have any solid evidence either that Daniel had killed his wife. They hadn't been able to collect much evidence from inside the family's stateroom on the ship. When Daniel and his children had disembarked, his stateroom hadn't even been seized. So the Italian forensic police did not get on board the boat until an entire 7 days after it had docked. And by that point, Xiang and Daniel's cabin had already been reassigned to another couple. Police did go check out the room anyways, but they were really only able to obtain some photos that they took from the balcony. Police believed that Daniel had put his wife in a suitcase and then thrown her from this balcony into the ocean. But the thing is, with this hypothesis, Daniel would have had to have thrown that heavy suitcase 13 meters or 42 feet away for it to have reached the water. So after Daniel had been released from the Italian prison in 2018, he was allowed to go back to Clare Hall, Dublin, to be with his children. And he also went to live with his mother-in-law, who believed there's no way he could have killed his wife. She has actually defended Daniel the entire time, saying that he's a good person. And she does not believe that he could have ever hurt her daughter. This is even though, at one point she also said Daniel and Xiang had argued often, and she had seen bruises on Xiang's wrist like she had been grabbed. So Daniel Belling was still standing accused of voluntary homicide, as well as destruction of a body in relation to his wife's disappearance. While he awaited trial, however, he was living carefree. According to his neighbors at the time, he came and went as he pleased, like he didn't have a care in the world. Then, in 2022, Daniel actually pled guilty to mortgage fraud. He had used falsified documents to secure a £112,000 mortgage, or close to $142,000 US. This was so he could buy a property in Dublin, and he actually blamed his wife for the forgery, saying that she had coordinated with the individuals who made the documents. This was actually only one of 6 times that Daniel had falsified legal documents. Apparently, he also had a history of doing bad things, then blaming his wife for them. And Daniel was saying that prior to Xiang's disappearance, their relationship was not good. He claimed that there was too many misunderstandings and cultural differences. He also said that if Xiang showed up alive at any point, he would not want to live with her again because it would be too oppressive. And when he was asked if he missed his wife, he said, "It's complicated," whatever the fuck that means. In March of 2024, Daniel finally went to trial for his wife's presumed murder, and he still denied any involvement. But the prosecution claimed that the evidence supporting the theory that Daniel had killed his wife, Xiang, was that there was also a suitcase missing, and that he had not even reported his wife as missing. On top of that, they didn't believe that Xiang would have ever abandoned her 2 young children. Daniel ended up being sentenced to 26 years, despite the prosecution only asking for 24. He was also tried in absentia, which means in his absence, as he refused to travel to Italy from Ireland for his trial. Though as of right now, for whatever reason, Italy has yet to send over an extradition request to Ireland. Daniel and his lawyer are convinced that he will be acquitted in the coming years, as there is no definitive evidence against him. Daniel himself said that he is shocked by the court's decision. He's hoping that he will win his appeal so that he can, quote, get money for compensation. And Daniel and Xiang's 2 children are now in foster care. In my opinion, Daniel definitely had something to do with his wife's disappearance. He didn't report her as missing. Chances are the keycard did not miss her getting off the ship, and CCTV footage also didn't show her disembarking. On top of that, the couple had been fighting a lot and had some serious financial issues, mostly due to Daniel's dishonesty. As far as Xiang's debit card being used and the lock at their home being changed, I feel like a relative of Daniel's could have easily done both of those while he was in prison. So I guess we will see if Daniel ends up winning his appeal or if he ends up being extradited back to Italy to serve his sentence. What do you think? Do you think Daniel killed Xiang? If you like true crime, then don't forget to subscribe now to A Wicked World and turn on all your notifications so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least twice every week.